I hope everyone can hear me now. I'm not talking on mute.
No, I can hear you.
All right, perfect. Thanks. Yeah, I think we had a prerequisite session. I think a month or so back, and today's session is kind of like the advanced for certificate authority. It's more of a practical hands-on today, so we'll try to go through all the different configurations of how to set up your Domino server as a certificate authority. We will also try to cover some of the elements of troubleshooting, some most common problems at the end of the session. The 3 or 4 major types of configurations that Domino servers can be used. As this, the nitty-gritties of certificates, how to import them, export them into different databases, here and there, relationships of the databases. So we'll try to go through all of them in today's session on the live environment. What I'm going to start with for next 10 minutes is just a quick go-through of the prerequisite slides, and we will keep referring back to this presentation as a catalog to our today's presentation. So just stop me wherever you feel we should focus on. I'll just move on to the next slide. Just 1 second. Right. So just a quick one. Why do we need certificate authority? We mentioned it's primarily used for secure connections between lotus nodes, for web servers, for LDAPs. So we'll go through these configurations today. Let's say for web server, how to configure a web server, or certificate authority, which is to be used by web servers. I'll skip the definition today. This particular slide, I feel, is actually elaborates the 2 major types of configurations that a Domino administrator should know how to set up or how to diagnose. So we'll set up certificate authority for a node system, and then we'll set up certificate authority for an internet system or external system. And within each of these, you can have scenarios where it can be same Domino domain or different Domino domains set up. So I think we'll try to follow this workflow in today's session about starting with nodes. And once we'll go to the external ones, we'll talk about that. So maybe let's maybe just start off with setting up certificate authority for node system in itself. What I have here is I've got a standard Domino server. And I've got a Domino admin client here. It's not configured for certificate authority. That's what we assume. The Domino server is standard, and now we want to enable this Domino server to be able to register nodes users based on certificate authority. Now, I'm sure this is fairly known to anyone who's worked on Domino CA before, but I think Domino or Nodes certificate authority, you would use Nodes has a very, how should I say, kind of a branded security system already. So it's a proprietary system already. So Nodes algorithms and Node security, public keys, private key infrastructure is already very secure and Nodes specific. So there's not much in terms of security that you would like to add from a CA standpoint. So, but let's assume you're a central administrator of an organization and you have offices in different regions, like Europe or in Asia or in Middle East or in US. Now you don't want to give physical access to your Nodes certified ID files to your administrators in different regions. You want to keep them central to your hub. So in that case, the only way to really do that is through certificate authority process. What that means is that an administrator for his day-to-day operations like user registration, user recertifications, user renaming, he doesn't really need physical access to a certified ID file. He he can simply do that by being a registering authority of a certifier in the certificate authority process. So I'll just start off by creating an organizational unit. This is just for test purposes. From my organization certifier, cert.id, we move on to the next stage. Right, registration server. Now all this is happening on your hub server. We assume this is, so I select this. We call it cert authority nodes. Give them the password. And register. Right. So ID file created C nodes. All you have to do to really enable your Domino server for nodes this thing is migrate your certifier to certificate authority process. Now, I hope the screen is clear, but on the right-hand side under the certification tab, you can see migrate certifier. So you click on migrate certifier. What you're doing now is you're actually migrating your standard certifier into your node's certificate authority system. So you will select the newly created certifier. We saved it on the C drive. So we'll C drive. We called it C nodes ID, CA nodes ID. Here's the password. Now, this window I would like to spend a few minutes on. On the first tab, you can see migrate certifier with ID. So C nodes. I'm not talking about the keyring here. We'll talk about this when we talk about internet certificate. For the time being, it's C nodes ID. This is the one we want to migrate. Select the server on which the certifier will run. Assuming this is a hub server. Name of the ICL database. In our prerequisite session, we talked about ICL. ICL is Issued Certificate List database. So this database that you define is going to be a central record of all the users, servers, certifiers registered, recertified, or renamed using this CA certificate. So this database is fairly critical. And at the same time, I do want to highlight that a lot of times certificate authority corruptions or certificate authority problems, for example, a remote administrator was trying to rename a user but was getting an invalid or non-existent document error message. The nav looks perfect, all the databases on the server have no corruption at all. It could be this particular document for that user in the ICL database that might have gone corrupt. So ICL database, I think, has a key role to play in terms of certificate authority related troubleshooting. So this is where you can define ICL database name and folder. It's all variable. So for example, we'll call it CA notes.nsf just for our training purposes. Encrypt certifier ID with. Now that's again crucial. All it does is basically simply adds another ID, or just like you can add extra password, you can add additional IDs to the certifier at this stage. What basically means is each time the certifier will be used, you can kind of force it to use one or two passwords. This is generally speaking, this would be used to attain multiple administrators having access to do a certain operation. So no one person can do it, so both people have to be present for some operation, so you can do that. General practice would be to lock it with a server ID. when you lock it with a server ID and the server ID does not have a password or it has a password, that's all what you need to decrypt this. On top, you can have an additional CA password that you can give to your administrators and can be defined here. But let's say we lock it with the server ID so that we're not asked for password throughout this process. Administrators. Administrators in this region, when you define, are the people who can actually modify, change this certifier, or people who are kind of authorized to use this certifier for any purpose. So in this case, let's say the administrator is added by default. There are two checkboxes that you can see, CAA and RA, Certificate Authority Administrator and Registration Authority. CA Authority Administrator, I'll actually just in case, I'll add the server here. The mouse is a bit flicky due to just one second. I'm just adding a server name. So let's say the administrator, this guy, I remove the RA checkbox. What this means is this person will only now be authorized to log on to the hub server and make changes to the certifier itself. This person is not allowed to register anyone with the certifier. So registration authority is a person who would normally be able to allow to register users using this certificate authority. So in a normal business environment where you have, let's say, 5 administrators, you will have 1 or 2 maximum CAAs or certificate authority administrators, but you will have more registering authorities, the people who can use the certificate only for registration. So I leave these 2 checked just for the time being for this training. I move on to the second tab here, certificates. Now, again, when we talk about notes certificates, I think this tab is, while it's very self-explanatory, it's not very critical. Most of the Domino servers would accept defaults or are backported to the minimum encryption strengths and defaults, so you will very rarely see that you have encryption issues with your node certificates through CA or through otherwise. But we'll talk a bit more about this when we go on to the internet certificates. It's a lot more complicated on that. But you can see that the certificate duration, 24 months, which means every user that is being registered with the CA will have a default certificate for 24 months, which is 2 years. Minimum, maximum, you can default all the limits. CA certificates, 1200 months, 2400 months. So these defaults you can obviously modify them. I'll just go ahead, click OK. It should give us a message.
Faisal, are you still on the line?
Oh, hi, Vinny. Sorry, yeah, I think I was turned to mute or something.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So I think that's so now we migrated the certifier. Just a second. This is the Domino console. CA certifier, as we discussed in the previous session, is a complete task in itself. It's very tightly integrated with the admin P. So just one second. Yeah. The command is load CA, load certificate authority. CA process cert authority initialized, recovery information. So it has processed a few certificate requests. You can do a tell CA status. It will tell you all the certifiers which are actually processed or active on the server. So the first one there says Cert Authority Notes. This is the one that we just created. If you look at certified type, it says notes, and active, yes. And you can see ICL DB path, ICL/CA notes.nsf. So which means that our certifier has successfully processed and is part of the certificate authority on this server. So which is good. But this is of certificate type notes. And before I move ahead, I just want to show you that, I mean, it's just exactly like a normal certifier. Let's go to the certifier tab, just 1 second. Note certificates and 704 and CA authority notes. Just opening. All the standard certificate public key is the same. Issued to, issued by. If you edit this and you look at the certificate details, examine note certificates, you will find no difference at all. It's the same algorithm, same encryptions, same this thing is used. The only difference, however, on the certifiers tab now that you can see is modify CA configurations button in the action menu for this. Why I want to show you this is that while you might have done the changes through the admin client, which is highly recommended because it creates admin P requests and everything, but for troubleshooting purposes, a lot of times you need to come to this interface and make changes, like CA administrators, registration authority administrators, and admin P server. You can make changes to this and submit. Why do you need this? What's the difference? I think one of the most common reason / some PMRs on this area, you will notice that there was an administrator whose role was certificate authority administrator. The guy left the organization, and they didn't realize that his name was in the CA administrators list, because you will very rarely come and modify a certifier. And unfortunately, when you delete a user, the admin P does not come in here and delete that user. I think there is an enhancement request on this. So this interface is very handy to add someone or remove someone from the address book. So that's why I just wanted to show you. So from a normal certifier and a CA certifier, this would be the only UI difference you would notice. I would save changes to no. And yeah, that's how you migrate your certifier. Now I will just take you through a quick test of how this is going to be used. Again, very simple. This time around, I don't need the certifier ID itself. To register a user, choose a certifier instead of the ID and password. You click on the second option this time. You drop down the menu, and you will see that your certifier is now part of the CA process list. You simply select that. And there you go. You're at the user registration screen. You haven't been asked for a cert ID file at any stage. I'll suggest you just a second. Password. And in the ID info, you will notice that the create a notes ID for this person and use CA process buttons are selected already, and you just simply register, and it should register without a problem. File does not. Okay, we can select the mail property. I think mail R7. Yes. Sure. And let's launch this slide. Right. So I think now we move on to the we go the notes CA process itself is literally as simple as this. You just have to migrate a normal certifier into the system, into the CA system, and that's it. Your normal certifier becomes available as a CA certifier in the CA system. So I think we'll go on to the second part of it, which has most of the complication, is setting Domino as a certificate authority for Internet systems, to talk to external systems, or to work as a security infrastructure itself. And that's where just a quick glance on this slide, where I just want to highlight the things that we should know. Certificates, we will create personal certificates, we will create server certificates, we will download the root certificate from our certificate authority, and we will create certifiers, obviously. So I think it actually should be the other way around. So we'll start from the bottom: certifiers, root certificates, server certificates, and then personal certificates. We will be using keyring file during this process, and we will try to convert different formats here and there into different types of structures. So just give me 1 second, and I will launch the thing for web. Perfect. So I think I'll just go to the configuration tabs, and actually before that, I just want to make sure that I show you the databases in there. Let me launch all the databases here. First one up is Certificate Authority Database. It's there by default, SCERTSRV.NSF. I launch this. Still coming up. I think it's right. So there it is, up there on the screen. Just a quick go back to the background to this database. Keyring file is like a store to your Domino server. It's like your internet store in your Internet Explorer, or certificate store in your Microsoft or Mozilla Firefox, Internet Explorers, Microsoft Outlook. Every tool these days has a store, so Domino store is the keyring file. Keyring file is something that would be referred to each time your server establishes a secure connection to anything. So I think that's where this database comes into action. This is where you manage your key file or your key store. The second most important database that we talked about the other day is the certificate request database, which is generally referred to as CertReq. So I'll open that one up. CERTREQ, certificate request. Okay, so there it is. I'll just remove the existing one. That's how it looks like. Keyring file, certificate keyring file. In fact, what I will do is I will delete the existing one, and I'll create a new one just for this training. second. Go to File, Certificate Request. Delete. Okay. So creating a new one, a new certificate request database. You can give it any name. It's cert reg is not important. I'll select the template. Click on the advanced templates to see that, and then certificate request 7 or 8. Right. So that's how, when you create a new certificate request database, that's how it will look like. Supported certificate authority, supported certificate types. We'll go into these details, but at this point, if you click on the server, which is 704, and you will be given a list of certifiers which are available on the server to be used as CA. So we use Internet CA. But let me go and create a new one that we can use to set up CA. And for clarity purposes, I'll just take 1 second and go to the slides to just explain to you what I'm going to do with these two databases now. And I think we had a slide on this area. Just 1 second. Yeah. So I think these two databases are key to the whole infrastructure, the keying file and everything. So we are going to set up an originating server, which we will not set up LDAP. We will validate, create intermediary certificate and validate trust certificate. This is your certificate authority database here for certificate authority. And this here you can see notes users, web users, email users, all the interface is going to be set through the certificate request. So in a sense, this is not a very valid statement, but in a sense, just for understanding purposes, the cert serve or certificate authority database is for an administrator's server-side management, whereas the certificate request database is for complete end-to-end management of issuance of certificates, of revocation of certificates, and managing your server. So there is a bit of overlap. You don't have to necessarily use certificate authority, but certificate request, it's good if you use the certificate request only for the interface management part of it. So I think that's where we're going to do. So I'm going to register an internet certifier for Domino to be able to talk to the internet. So rather than a normal certifier, I register an internet certifier, and I'll say using the CA process. This will give me a list of certifiers which we migrated. We saw this window already when we were migrating the notes certifier to the CA process. It's the same window, but with very few differences. So let's go through them. This time, instead of it taking a file, you have to define the name and everything for this certifier right in this window. It's the first button here says, so it's a common name. We call it CA Internet Training. And organizational name is called training. The location, we don't have to give the only two fields which are compulsory in this is the common name and the country. So you can actually skip the others if you want. They're all optional. So this is the name that it's going to form or going to show up like. Press OK here, and this should go OK. So the rest of the fields are pretty much the same as you can see. the server name, the ICL database, name of the ICL database to be created. It's ICL_004. We just rename it for understanding purposes. We'll call it ICL int certify.nsf. So this is the ICL for the same. Lock it with the server ID. Don't have to add. Keep the administrator as CA and RA for training purposes. Now, the second tab here, as you can see in the previous window, when we were migrating the notes certifier, all you had was duration of the certificates that were going to be issued with that certifier. But in case of an internet certifier, the thing is a bit different, and it is very important. Now, I'll try to highlight why this happens. A lot of times you'll get PMRs. Or we got a certificate signed from VeriSign, or we got a certificate signed from Thought. We're trying to use it, but we cannot send an encrypted email. Or we were trying to, the certificate was working perfectly. It is being used perfectly for emails, but when we use it, when the users access the website, it doesn't work. It's because of these types of usages. I think if you ask me, a year or two back, VeriSign or any of the third-party certificate authorities would simply just select all of these or most of the commonly used ones and send you the signed certificate back. But now I think they're either charging for every of these separately, or I don't know how it works, but now they don't send you a signed certificate that is capable of doing everything. So as a Domino certificate authority, this is the time where you have to decide this particular certificate authority certifier is going to be used for this purposes. So let's go through some of them. Digital signature. If you are going to use this certificate authority for email protection, use that. Non-repudiation, key encipherment, data encipherment, key agreement. So all sorts of different types. TLS, web server authentication. That's important if you are going to use this for server-to-server relationships. Sign executable code for application servers. This is important. Email protection, IPsec tunnel, IPsec user. To be honest, I don't even know what these IPsec. I think it's probably for network this thing, but I've never seen a Domino server issuing certificates for these types. But anyways, you can select any of these types, right? Timestamping. Once you've decided what your certificate authority is going to issue certificates for, you can decide on the duration. As you can see here, 24 months, 360 months, default and maximum. Backdate certificate validity, include CRL distribution point extensions. You can see details over here. This is your LDAP connectivity. Export these from somewhere else. And in the miscellaneous tab is your certifiers backup operations or revocation operations. I'll go through some of them. Create a local copy of the certifier ID. Internet certifiers kind of, stay in the nav, and you need to specify if you need an ID file for this or not. By default, it does not. So you can still get an ID file by setting this here. Duration for CRL. CRL is certificate revocation list. What that means is a certificate, you just delete the certificate, or you delete a user. How long do you want to keep the certificate valid for? So you can actually specify those durations here as part of your administrator. Signing algorithm. Now that's another question. I think a lot of the new functions. I mean, does Domino support MD5? Does Domino support SHA2? Does Domino support all sorts of different algorithms? So these are the only three that Domino supports: MD5, SHA1, DSA, which are pretty much the standards. SHA2, for example, is in use by some of the EMEA customers, by government agencies and bodies like that. But they're asking for Domino, but Domino only supports these three. So if someone is trying to import a certificate issued by Domino, onto their Tivoli system or onto their Microsoft IAS system and expecting an SHA-2, it will not work. So this is where you decide either you're going to issue MD5 certificates or you're going to issue SHA-1 certificates. The default is MD5. Key length 40961024, that's the default key length, and certificate will expire on, this is your internet certificate expiry date that we're talking about. X500 mail IP DNS, that's your PK type. You can define X509 certificates. As you know, X500 is the default type, so we leave it at that for the time being. So I'll just register this one. It's internet cert, internet training, and I press OK. We again go to the Domino console to see the status of our certificate. We do a del CA status to see if it has gone through or not. Certificate authority, certificate type. No, it has not come in yet. We'll do a del CA refresh. That actually will or should process any pending certificate authority requests. Status again to see if it has gone through now. Internet, yeah, I think that it has gone through. I'm trying to expand the window here. Yeah, I think in the previous you would see we just had 4, and now the 5th one here, it says CA Internet Training Dublin, certified type Internet, and active yes. Active yes means we should be able to use this certifier now for or to be used in the certificate authority process. Now I go back to the certificate request database, if you remember, the newly one that we created, and we selected the server name, and we had the certifier list. I'll actually refresh this now. Let's reopen the database. No. F9, there is our database. Servers, yeah. And then certifier list, yeah, there it is. The third one there is Internet Training Dublin. Yes, we want to use this for our training purpose. So far, the settings that you've looked at, we've created the Internet Certifier, and for an Internet Certifier, things that it can be used for and kind of encryptions and algorithms. Now what you're doing in this database is at any given time, your server is going to do what? If a user comes online onto your company website and requests for an Internet certificate, a user, a personnel, a server, what sort of thing or what sort of response he should get. Your server should be able to issue client certificates only, server certificates only, or both. You decide that at this stage. This can be configured at any time. Validity period is default 1 year. Key usages. Again, the same interface. Now, this list is shown to you based on whatever you permitted in the Internet Certifier: digital signature, non-repudiation, key encipherment, and all those functions. Extended usages that this can be used for: server authentication, code signing, IPsec, timestamping. So let's just select code signing and server authentication if we maybe later decide to use this. Server request, which means the server certificate requests, you can default 1 year. By default, it's recommended to be higher. And the same function here, key usages. For these ones, you just wanted to do server authentication. But a lot of times you see customers, what they want to do is they want to connect their Domino server or any other server using our certificate, authority certificate, to talk to an LDAP server, for example. So what they don't realize is when Domino server establishes, let's say, an LDAP-S connection with an external server, it actually acts as a client, and the certificate that needs to be added to the names.nsf has to be or should have the client authentication capability to be able to do that. So yeah, that's what I was just trying to explain, that a lot of times you do get a certificate for server authentication, but the type of connection that you're trying to establish with another server is not really a server-to-server connection, but your server kind of maybe acting as a client. So it's good to have or good to check that the certificate customer is using actually has this functionality enabled. And email protection, I would say a lot of, I mean, we have a strong messaging team here, and we get quite a few issues around email protection and being unable to encrypt emails or sign emails. And a lot of times you realize that they don't really bother checking the type of the certificate in that case. So yeah, just a quick one on that. Processing methods. Now that's important. I'll actually in this session I'll take you through the automatic, which most of the customers are using. But even in automatic, you actually go through all the processes. The only thing that you're really automating is the emails part of the process, or the admin P request getting generated automatically rather than you pushing the thing into admin P and creating the request. So we'll go through this. For the timing, let's keep it to automatic to see how it goes. Automatic transfer server. Yes, automatically transfer, which basically means create admin P requests and everything on this server. Email notification, yes. So this is a one-off configuration for this certifier. Just hold on for 1 second, guys. Just 1 minute. Sorry, I had a cough going on, not feeling all that very good. So let's say if you have 3 certifiers, 1 for clients, 1 for servers, and 1 for your customers, for example. Each time you want your server to issue certificates to, let's say, customers, you will select one of the 2 types or 3 types of the certifiers. The certifier selected on this interface is the one which will be used to issue certificates to users. Okay, perfect. So just a quick pointer there. I just thought I'd highlight. I'll save and close this. Just notice the menu on the left-hand side. As soon as I save and close, we will have a lot more options on the database. Now you can see we just had database configuration before. Now we have Domino keying management. Now we have pending request, submitted request, and issued rejected certificate. This is where you really kind of use it or act on this interface. I know it must be fresh. I think we talked about initially that the certificate request database is your interface for users and servers. There are multiple interfaces for this thing. So let's go through some of them before we get into how the server part of it works. So let me show you the interfaces. First interface is within the database itself, that you want to create a key store and you want to have a signed certificate in this using this key store. So you can do this from here. The second interface of this database is for users. Let me launch a browser and show that one. certificate request.nsf. Right, here we go. So without any customizations, that's the default interface of this database from the web. So a lot of times users or servers, customers, whoever needs an internet certificate will go to this interface and request for something. I'll just enlarge the font just to make sure you can see it. Right, so it's still waiting for the rest. Okay, so I think we're there now. So this is the interface. You can see on the menu on the left-hand side it says request server certificate, pick up server certificate, accept this authority in your server, accept this authority in your browser, request client certificate, and pick up client certificate. So this is the second interface to this database. And before I go on to how the thing actually works, I just want to show you the third interface before I do that. So you can actually go to your standard notes client, and let's say if I'm a user and I want a certificate, I can go into security, user security. Yeah, it's asking me to synchronize my password with notes. I don't want to do that. And if you go into your identity and then your certificates and the get certificates options, you can see it says request new internet certificate. I'm not confident about this, but I think in a lot of real life Domino infrastructure environments, I think this is where most of the administrators would allow or would ask their users to do that. A lot of times they have agents developed who would perform this operation for them. Once you click on it, it is pretty much the same interface as the other. So I think what we need here is, instead of this default URL, you would have 161.165.certdirect.nsf. The same URL that we used on the browser, you just give that here, and it will perform the same operation as requesting for a new internet certificate for your user. Avoid trust decisions by accepting all websites, the option 2 on this pop-up box. We go through the browser on the extra steps, but each time you do that, it requires user acceptance. Do you want to accept this authority? You want to accept the certificate and all? So by check marking this radio button, which is very important, it will keep waiting for the user input on the thing. So click on launch page and it goes on to the same page. Okay, so let's go in and let's do I think what we're going to do now is we're going to start with an end user certificate, and from our slides, what we're doing, I just want to show you quickly. Yeah, we're going to get personal certificate, server certificate, root certificate, and certified. We got the certifiers part. We've created nodes and internet certifiers. I think now we're going to go through the rest of the chain. We've got a keying file. We need to create a keying file for our server, and then do the rest. So let's go ahead and do all of that step by step. First step is to create a keying file for our server. We'll save it in the C drive. Again, the key file name. The only thing that you need to make sure it's the same is the extension. You can use the CA training.kir. We give it this name. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Key size. That's simply your key store size. So it doesn't have to be. The name does not have to be your internet certifier or anything. So we call it training file. And both state and country are crucial here. So we create keying file. Yes. Certificate will be merged into the keying file as trusted root, which means that our root certificate from the CA is going to be now merged into the key file automatically. Otherwise, we will have to do the CSR and the certificate signing. If you go into the pending requests now, you will see a request here. It says server request from administrator or Faisal, which is actually a request for the server certificate from the new CA that we've established. If you double click, just to show you how it looks like, issuer name, request type, phone numbers and details, we didn't give that. So we just select this and we submit. On the top of the view, you can see two actions, submit and pull selected request. So at this point, we're submitting this. We're submitting this to the administration server for processing. So as you can see in the prompt, it says successfully submitted one request to the administration process. So let's go to the admin4.nhf and see if we have any requests. Right. I'll just delete the rest. I was testing the system before the training, so I'll delete them. So you can see there's a new. I'm actually on the left-hand side. If you look at the last option, certificate authority requests, I've clicked on the certificate request view, and this is where I am now. It's in new status right now. I have to double-click on this as an administrator. I will go in. I'm supposed to verify the document. It's still loading up. Right. So it's certificate authority. This is our certifier that we created. Pending registration authority approval. And all the details, expiration, automatic nav location for issued certificate, and all the key usages and everything that we selected at the time are now part of this here. You have to edit the request to approve or deny this. So you approve it. As soon as you approve it, it waits for the administration process to complete this. You can see that the state has changed from new to issued to certificate authority. So just to fast track things up, we can then admin the process new, and then we do a CA refresh. So admin P actually asks the CA process to issue a new certificate, and that gets added here. So let's see if this has changed. This happens. Yeah. Now you can see the state is changed into issued by certificate authority. So admin 4 has done its job. We go back to the certificate request database as administrator, and this time we select the same request or any number of requests which are now processed and pull these requests. Cross certify. Successfully pulled one request from the administration process. So nothing pending. On the left-hand side, I'm now going to go to issued, rejected certificates, and now we can see there is one issued certificate, which is for our keying file. I copy the request ID here. Request ID is important, by the way. For end users, they will receive an email on which they click on the link, and it takes them to a URL where they have to paste this. So because this was for our keying file, we have the option available in the same database as pickup keying certificate on the left-hand side. So I simply click on this. Now this is the part where you requested for a certificate on the server. It got signed by the server, certificate authority, and the signed certificate was sent back to the administrator, and now the administrator is merging that into his key store. This is a server-side operation. So we'll just give the key file name that we had. We call it catraining.kyr. We'll give that password for the keying file, and the pickup ID of our newly created certificate, server certificate. So we click on pickup certificate, and it should go in and get the certificate for us. Looks good so far. The certificate will merge into your keying file. Check the information below, then click OK to install the certificate and cancel to stop. Click OK. Certificate has been merged into your keying file. Next step, you're now ready to enable you're ready to enable SSL on your server. See Lotus Domino Administrator. Yeah, we don't have to go to that stage at this point. Sorry. So this was the first part of the interface where we were talking about enabling your own server with your Domino certificate authority to use SSL for websites, for emails, for whatever. So we merged the certificate, we've got a keying file, and now our server should be able to run. The second key function of a certificate authority for internet is users, right? You want your users to be able to securely connect to your Domino server through web or to be able to send emails. So let's do that. Let's go through the people's part of or the user side of things as well. So I go back to the browser where we had this. We go to the second or lower part of the menu, and let's request a client certificate, right? You can compare this operation to yourself going on verisign.com and requesting for a certificate. It's pretty much the same operation, but being done on your Domino server. So I say my full name here. We just call it training user. We call it CA training. Organization IBM. And Dublin. Country IE. This is crucial code. And we call it training user at 9.1. Return email. Emails are important. It won't accept the form without an email, so I'm just filling the field in so that it accepts the form. Generate request. I actually remember this SPR here. It used to be 5112, 1028 or 2048 bit encryption. So for end users, it used to confuse them. For some administrators or some servers would take 4096 as high, some would take 2048 as low. So I think now it's transformed into high grade and medium grade. So whatever your administrator is using at the back end, high grade would be the highest and medium grade would be the one which is medium. So in our case, we selected 2048 for the certificate. So I think that's going to be the high grade, and low grade will be the one lower, which is 1028. So it doesn't really, I mean, it's just extra security as you can understand. So the user goes in and says submit certificate. So it should give us a pop-up. Right. So the server has accepted your request for certificate. Very much the same operation. The administrator on his Domino server just goes to the certrec database, clicks on the pending requests again, and this time you can go in and see client request from training user at this is pending. So we say, okay, let's say we approve it, we select this request, and we submit it to the central organizational administrator. The central administrator goes to the admin4.nsf, goes to the certificate requests view. Let's refresh this, and now we can see there's a new one. That's the state which I'm referring to, new and issued. So on the new one, we go on the new one, check all the details as being okay, edit request to approve it or deny it. You can see that the certificate authority, you can see that it's the same certifier that we use. Pending registration authority approval, valid to. You can see the default is 1 year, as we did that in the CA configurations. And let's say you approve this request. Again, same process as the server certificate. Tell admin P process new. Well, obviously this is not important. The console commands that I'm giving, these are not critical, but sometimes it may take up to 30 minutes for the CA task to kind of issue. So that's why I'm just doing this just in case so that we have them immediately. So now you can see the state has changed. The new one has gone in saying training user at this is being issued now. Second step, we go back into the certrec. We had one submitted, client request. Now we pull it back from the admin4. We've successfully pulled one request from administration process. We go into the pending and submitted email, issued and rejected. And now we see that the client request is also issued. Double click on that and you should be able to see the same form as you see for the server. Under normal business operation, this would be an email sent to this user on the email that he specified on the form. But because the email that we specified is invalid, we just simply go to this URL that I was referring to, is sent to the user in email. So we just copy this here, go back to the browser. That's another SPR. Pick up client certificate. And on this form, I would need my request ID, which is this one. Just a manual copy-paste operation. And this is where I copy the pickup ID and pickup client certificate. I just clicked on the button there. And now it's saying that it's giving me the certificate details. The subject is my email and my name. So I install the certificate. It's giving me a message. Your personal certificate has been installed. You should keep a backup copy of the certificate. Okay, perfect. Now, before I move on to the next step here, I'm fairly confident everyone is already aware of this. But just like the key file .kyr of your Domino server, this personal certificate has been installed in the certificate store of this browser, right? So let's go and see the certificate store of this browser to verify if this is installed. So this is Firefox options, and in the advanced tab, encryption and view certificates. Oops, sorry. And I'm in the your certificates section, and you can see that CA Internet Training User and Software Security Development, these are all test users, and this is where you can see that the certificate is installed. So this machine, or let's say this user from this machine, should be able to access an SSL website hosted on our Domino server without a problem, right? So that's it. And I think we'll come back to this interface at pretty much the end of the presentation, or another 15-20 minutes, where we will see how to export these certificates into different formats that we talk about: P12, P7B, X509s, with or without the public keys, and all those interfaces. Okay, so I cancel this out. We have the certificate installed. Sorry, I'm back on the meeting interface. Okay, certificate issued by this thing. So that's the client interface that we looked into, where you can issue this. The third part of the whole thing is the root certificate, which is important but missed a lot of times. It's actually fairly simple, so I'll just quickly take a minute to explain that. Root certificates are like a blanket or a holder for a certificate, something that verifies that yes, this certificate is from a recognized authority. Now, who recognizes it? It's yourself. It's the user. So for every user's system to be able to say an authority or a certificate is recognized is only through the interface saying that this is where we accept it or this is where we don't. So you can accept this authority in your browser. You click on this, and on the screen you can see CA Internet Training Dublin. In CA Internet, this is actually our certifier. So when we say the install certificate, it will simply install your root authority into your browser. And this is what it says: trust the CA to identify websites, trust the CA to identify emails, and trust the CA to identify software developers. So yeah, I'm checkboxing all of this. So some PMRs or some customers would say, we have set up a new security infrastructure, but we want to avoid users getting this warning saying that your certificate is from an unknown authority. The only way to work around that is to actually do this: have the authority trusted at least once for all. If you don't do this operation that I've just done, each time you access our server, you will get a warning saying the authority is not trusted. So click OK, and now this browser has the CA authority installed as well. Okay. So this was the second interface of this thing. Right. So clients, we've seen the client interface, we've seen how to create a server certificate. I think one key part which is left is the CSR process, and I can quickly take you through the CSR processes there. I'm just waiting for this interface to load. Just give me 1 second. Right. Perfect. Why do you need this, or in which conditions would you actually require this particular operation that I'm just going to do now? Um, you have one server, or you've moved to CA or moved to SSL, one of your servers. Now an external domain server, a server which is maybe a parallel domain or some other organization who wants to establish a trust relationship with your organization, with your server, I think those are the people who would require this operation that I'm performing now. The assumption is that this is a different server and it has a different key file. So basically what you have to do is, we've done the create key file, we've done the install trusted root certificate into key file, and we've done the install certificate into key file through the certificate request database for our server. So what this guy is going to do is, just a second, I think something's running on the machine, just one second. Okay. I just want to be able to click on the create certificate request button right now. So I need to create a new one of this as well. Refresh. There's something, looks like it's holding on to the machine or something. I don't know. Shouldn't take this much time.
Just a reminder for those on the phone, please feel free to ask questions by hitting *6.
Okay, I think we should create a new database.
Faisal?
I've been here, exactly.
Just a question. That error code you just got, in an invalid or non-existent document, that's I assume that's the corruption you were referring to earlier in the session?
Exactly. Yeah, I think in this particular case, I think I'm using the wrong template here for the database. I think that's why I'm getting that error message. And yeah. Server certificate admin. Yeah, that should be it. I just created a new database. I think the old one was experimenting with it. It should work, hopefully. Yeah, okay, that's perfect. Yeah, I go back to this. I think I was experimenting. It's, as you can see, the template for this thing has not changed since R5. It's still the same. I think they've come up with a newer version recently. So So just a quick fallback. Sorry about that. Sorry about the delay there. But I think this process is going to be used by people or organizations who are parallel to your organization, who want their servers to be trusted or to be issued a certificate with your server. So they have to go in. They have to identify the key files. So in our case, we'll just use this one because we know it exists. It already has a certificate, but we will just request for it again. Paste into from on CA side or send CA by email. We'll keep the paste option because it will at least show us how it looks like. Password for the thing. This is the password for the keying file. Right. So this is how your CSR or an unsigned certificate looks like. Begin new certificate. Just copy this. It's a manual operation. I've just Control-C, Control-V operation of the text that you can see below. Okay, so this certificate request has gone out. Now I'll try to explain this of how this works. Just give me 1 second. Verisign.com. So let's go for a free trial. Right, so let's get, I will have to add my actual this thing. This is personal. I have to answer all of this. Right. Yeah, the reason why I came here was actually this screen. I just wanted to show you that what we're doing is pretty much industry standard for this. Free trial certificate, 14 days validity, whatever. Enter your technical contact, identify your this. Need help, identify your server platform and enter your certificate signing request, your CSR. Verify your CSR and enter challenge phrase. Confirm, submit your order, install the trusted CA. So let's go ahead and see if we were to get our server signed from these guys, what would we do? Oh man, they're asking for everything. Okay, so I think in the same way, just like the VeriSign interface, let's go to our server. So our customer comes to our server instead of going to VeriSign. He comes onto our server. He says request for server certificate, and he enters his name, server org 2, email address admin at server2.com, okay, and paste the certificate request here, and he pastes the CSR into this and submits the request. So the server has accepted the request, and the same process goes again. the one that we did for key file and then we did for the client request, the same process would actually go for this as well. So this is where this is the role of a CSR that you issue. Some things to remember around CSRs that I want to highlight. Number one, CSRs issued from one key file / one server cannot be used on other servers. If CSRs are not issued, if the CSRs are generated at random or on a website, or if you're getting a wildcard certificate, for example, it comes with its own limitation. It can only be managed by the certificate authority. I'll quote an example here. One of the Spanish customers, it was a big issue, went on to very high up in development in IBM, and what they were saying was, we got a wildcard certificate and we are unable to use it on 2 of our servers. What they didn't realize was that when they requested for the wildcard certificate, it was for, let's say, /unit1/organization or */unit1, and they were trying to use it for /unit2/organization. So they were really for a different set of organizations. So your email address /organization, even if it's a wildcard, if you have not issued a CSR, if you're going the non-CSR route, it cannot be managed by your server. It goes off to the certificate authority to manage it for you. But in case if you have a CSR, you have full control of what this certificate is going to be used for, how it's going to be, or which servers it's going to be used for. So CSR is an important part of the equation here. So this is what I want to highlight. Let me go back to the presentation. I think to see if we can go through the exports of certificate portion, public keys and private keys slightly, how to import a certificate into your names.nsf, and finally setting up or establishing an SSL connection on the Domino server. So just 1 second. Let the browser. Right. So we've done it for node system. We've done it for external systems, the basic setup of it at least. We've created a personal certificate. We've created a server certificate from CSR, and we've created a server certificate from within the certificate request database. We've seen how to install the root certificate into a browser. We've seen the key file. iKeyman we'll look at the end if time permits, or exporting. We've seen at the CSR. We haven't looked at the CSR, the certificate formats yet. So let's go and have a look at the certificate formats. And then finally, ICL and CRL databases. How do they look like? Okay. So let's start with the certificate formats. So I'll go into the browser, which is the simplest way to export and import. I'm going into the options, view certificates, and we look at CA Internet. This is the user certificate that we have. If you open an Internet Explorer key store, you will see options like export, save, or backup. In Firefox, you will only see the word backup, so which indirectly means export of Firefox, of Internet Explorer. So you can see that as soon as I click on the backup button, it gives me only one file type option, which is PKCS12. And as we discussed in the prerequisite session, PKCS7 is server format, PKCS12 is personal format. The difference between the two is, for server certificate, you don't have the private key in them. In case of PKCS12, you have complete chain of the certificate in the file itself. So let's say we call it in training user certificate, and PKCS12, we save it. It's asking for a password because we're creating a file out of it. So you just give any password. Okay. Successfully backed up certificate and private keys. So if you go on to the desktop, or actually where did it back up? It's backed up on the desktop. So I'll just go to the desktop. I'm just waiting for my desktop to show up. I think it's just one second. Okay. Yeah, so finally on the desktop you can see this is the certificate, and now once I have a .p12 file, I can easily view this. You can open with crypto shell extensions, which is your default this thing. It will import it in your Windows environment. Ask for password, yes please. Enable strong protection, make key exportable, yes please. And go on to the next. Automatically store this, yes. Yes. The import was successful. Sorry, before I can even to open it. Just want to be able to. I think I was better off launching it. Huh? Certificate. Training user. Export. So now when I export this, it says do not export, or yes, export the private key. Export the private key. Now this screen actually pretty much shows you all the formats available to you. So first one, DER encoded binary X509, base 64 encoded X509. X509 is pretty much the industry standard for the user certificate. So if you go on a website, it will download an X509. All the certificates would be in that. But in this particular case, we have a personal certificate which is capable of doing a lot of things. So include all certificates path. When you select the first one, this export is going to contain the CA as well. Delete private key if you want to, and then you can give the password. It's a new password now for the new export. So file name export CA driven. Export keys, file format, personal information exchange .pfx, and you finish this. So that's, and if you look at the certificate authorities, trusted root certificates, I hope the internet cert is now in this. certificates, authorities. As you can see, it's all defaults, all third parties are already in there. Internationally known ones. Trying to find. Yeah, I think. Oh, so when you install the certificate on Mozilla, the certificate authority got this thing as well. So when I export the certificate authority certificate, you can see it will be in a different format. This is now X509 certificate BEM, which is the first one. And you can export this into X509 DER, X509 PKCS7, X509 certificate with the chain. The difference between normal certificate and a certificate with the chain is when you install certificate with the chain, it just brings in the whole hierarchy of the certificate, the first, the intermediary, the last, the whole chain of it. So I think the safe thing to do is to have the whole with the chain. But you obviously can have reasons not to export the chain. If you want someone to only have an intermediary certificate, you can do that with them. So we've exported this again on the desktop, and I think you should be able to see this on the desktop. So these are some of the commonly known formats and the ways you can export these into. Yeah, and that's how it would look like. CA Internet CA validity, details, CA Internet training, digital signatures, key usages, all that you decided when you were creating the CA certification path. This is what could show you the whole chain if there were multiple layers of it. Trust, you trust it or you don't, what sort of relationship you have with this. You can have all of this information in here. I think the ISSI installer has started, and I think now I know the reason for it being so slow. Okay. All right. So this is what we have now. I think one last thing that I would like to touch base on before we finish is enabling your Domino server or use of these for your Domino server. If you want to enable your Domino server for SSL, for messaging, or for server, I think that should be a fast one. Before we do a recap, so all you have to do is go into your configurations. So what I'm doing now is enabling my Domino server based on the keyring file that we just created to host a website which is SSL enabled or to establish a connection. So I'm opening the configuration document for this server. I go into the ports tab first. I'm going to see if the SSL port is enabled. So if I go down into the web, it says SSL port number 443 and SSL port is enabled. And this uses internet site documents for the rest of the configurations. So I'll just quickly cross-check Domino Web Engine. It's picking up values from internet site documents. So let's go into configuration, web, internet sites. Create an internet site for web. Use anyway. Internet context, organization. Let's make this a default. In the configuration, there's nothing for SSL specific. One thing that is important for SSL is that it has to be a session-based authentication. So you have to choose the single server authentication type for SSL to work. So you select that, go into the Security tab, and there you can see in the SSL options, you have to give the path for your CA training.nsf, .kyr. So that's your keying file. Save and close. And I'll go to the console command just to make sure. I can do a restart, but I just don't trust. I think that the load HTTP works better than restart. So. Okay, so hoping for the best. If I go on to our server now, and this time let's try to establish an HTTPS connection instead of HTTP. And you see it's saying the connection is untrusted because the certificate authority. I would say add exception, get certificate. Confirm security exception. And there you go. You have actually established now an HTTPS connection. You are being served through SSL on the server. Let's go to names.nsf, for example. It asks us for login. So I log in with the administrator, hoping that the credentials are correct. Yep, all the connection, as you can see, is HTTPS connection throughout. So basically now you are you have your Domino server, which is hosting its own certificate authority. It's capable of signing certificates, issuing certificates, revoking certificates, and the certificates issued by your Domino server can actually be used over the internet, over the secure connection, and both CA and the user certificates will be installed on access if needed. One quick thing that I want to show you is the ICL databases themselves. Let's see, in the ICL, we created the CA Internet ICL insert.nsf. So let's see how that looks like. So you can see CA Internet OU training, which will be certifier itself. Then training key file, we issued a certificate using the certifier or the CA authority to our keying file. That's the second one. And the third one is the actual user who requested the interface, requested the certificate over the browser interface. So in the ICL database, you can see all three of these are there. And if you open one of these documents or one of these issued lists, you can actually go in and you can see the revoked option. You can just simply check mark this or click on the button at the top of this form saying revoke certificate. So this will actually cancel the certificate for that particular user and will become part of the revocation list. You can manage the configurations also, or at least look at them from this database. It's highly sensitive database in a sense that I've seen very few changes or any changes, in fact, made through the ICL database could actually cause the thing to break down, and sometimes you have to you end up creating or recreating the ICL database to fix them. But you can definitely look at all the configurations, or you can actually make changes to the configurations from the ICL database itself. That's it. at this point, I would say in terms of the session, this is what I wanted to cover. Broadly speaking, I mean, if you have any questions on any of the stages, you please feel free to ask me, or if you want me to go through any of the things again or explain on any of the things again, I can do that now. Yeah.
For those on the phone, if you'd like to ask a question or if you'd like some clarity on something, please hit *6 to unmute your line and ask Faisal your question now. Faisal, are you still on the line?
Oh, yeah, I'm here, Vinny. Yeah, I was.
That's okay. I heard silence.
Right.
Sorry, I was on mute. I just want to say great presentation, and there's a lot of steps, so I'm glad that this is going to be recorded so I can step through it later on.